Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll get our presentation pulled up here shortly. Get everything woken up here. And I'd like to introduce Erin Carroll. She's our Farmers Market Commission Chair. She's been with the Commission since it began, and she'll be giving a brief overview of what the market's been up to. Luckily, you've seen a few things recently from the market. And give me one more second.
I'm really glad you're driving, Jen.
Yeah. It's funny when you're not in front of your own computer. Oh, is it? Okay. I did it the hard way. Sorry.
That's one convoluted file structure.
There we go. I do this. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, council members, for receiving this report this evening. Like Jen said, my name is Erin Carroll, and I'm currently serving as the chair of the Moscow Farmers Market Commission. None of this should be a surprise because I feel like I've been up here a little bit more in the last year. We've been doing some very hard work and working within some city structures for our strategic plans. So that's a lot of this report today, is just kind of updating you on that process and receiving any feedback that you might have for the commission's work. So a few highlights here are just so you know what's happening in our 2017 farmers market. Jen and I actually discussed today how it might be better to do this report at the end of the market season so we can give you a nice comprehensive view. So maybe next year we'll do that because these mid-season reports are a little hectic. But if you're not aware, the market staff puts out a newsletter every week with updates of vendor changes, vendor highlights, what's happening in the market, and anything that might be helpful for our patrons and our vendors. Those are located on social media and handed out to each of the vendors. We also have CALS, which is the College of Animal and Life Sciences. What's that? Ag and Life Sciences, Animal and Life Sciences. I tell you, between U of I and WSU, all my acronyms get messed up. But they've been coming in and doing Summer of Science and doing some wonderful educational displays, especially for families that attend the market and children. And every time I go, those students, or the children, are just full in that booth looking at sugar and bugs and all sorts of oddities. We still have a lot of participation from the UI Chess Club, which is nice. And there's many things that come to the market that aren't included on here. Here are just a few highlights. We're still honoring many benefits, including the SNAP and EBT, WIC, and the SFMNP. That one you might be less familiar with is the Senior Assistance Nutrition Program. And I think Jen tried to trip me up with a video in here to show you of, backwards mouse, about our benefits that Zach Ellis put together. So if you don't mind, I'd like to play that for you. Is that all right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and make this decision on a city computer, no problem. You're fine.
Well,
just
you're doing
download
great
away.
I don't know what
just download away. I'm sure it's safe. It's fine.
Maybe not.
We're messing with Chris.
You might find that on the desktop as well. I put it there earlier.
Oh. Oh. Well, it is playing. Just.
Oh, here we go.
We have no sound.
I think Chris will turn that up for us here in a
Okay,
second.
I'll go ahead and start it back.
Worked great at my desk.
Jen, you're going to have to do the voiceover for us. Are you ready? No, I'm kidding.
I don't think I can read that fast.
Do we have sound that anyone can help us with?
Well, there's another little thingy at the very bottom of the screen on the right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
You're working on it. Awesome.
Sorry.
When we get the
Hang in
go-ahead,
there,
I'll
ladies
start
and
that again.
gentlemen.
There we go.
Repetition is education.
Yeah. Nothing if not flexible, I tell
It's
you
a good
what.
thing I couldn't get it the first time through anyway, Aaron, so.
That's all right. So while they're figuring that out, we'll go through the rest of these. There was also a pup-friendly campaign. Dogs in the market is certainly a passionate topic, and we wanted to encourage people to write appropriate dogs that are allowed in our market, which are service animals. So there was a really adorable campaign that our market manager worked to get put together to show what types of service animals are allowed in our market and what that does for our market to keep it safe for everyone to attend. We've seen record attendance this year. with nearing 8,000 people a day, which is amazing to bring that down to our downtown area. Many musical performances, as you're probably aware of. Certainly, we're all aware of the benefit of the downtown restrooms that provides for the farmers market and all events that are held on Main Street. We've had chef demonstrations at the market, which promotes our local food sourcing. Those chefs are not only teaching people how to use nutritious foods, but where to buy them within the market, so hopefully connecting people to their farmers. Certainly our social media presence continues to grow, and our market staff has done a phenomenal job of keeping that running. And amongst all these highlights, there's certainly a low light that we are losing our AmeriCorps position, or not the position, but the person filling that position, Jessica, unfortunately, will be leaving that position, and we're looking to fill that here as soon as possible. I'm going to try this video again. If it burns me a second time, we're going to call it.
The Moscow Farmers Market was the first market in the state of Idaho to welcome food stamps. Now, through Backyard Harvest, it's easier than ever to use your food stamps to purchase fresh, local fruits and vegetables. Step 1, go to the Backyard Harvest tent next to the City of Moscow tent in Friendship Square. Step 2, swipe your SNAP EBT card. Step 3, for every $5 in SNAP that you spend, you'll receive an extra $2 in fresh bucks. Step 4, shop the market for eggs, cheese, berries, honey, and more. Then get 40% more fruits and vegetables with your fresh bucks.
So a great promo video that was put together that also highlights our phenomenal partnership with Backyard Harvest and trying to increase nutritional foods to those who may not have access to it otherwise, and of course shopping locally with those dollars. So a few of the highlights. In the past year, I'd say one of the biggest accomplishments of the Farmers Market Commission is completing the strategic plan that you all helped us adopt and supported. So the rest of this report is really focused in what that strategic plan looks like, what we have been accomplishing within that plan, and where we're going with each of those goals and objectives. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them along the way, or happy to pull Jen back up here so she can answer them for you. Our strategic planning update. So one of our goals within that was to clarify our operational expectations, and this is a lot of jargon pulled straight from our strategic plan. But really this was about getting us poised in a position that we can best operate the market, getting a full-time market manager instead of our seasonal market manager, so the email address didn't go cold for 3 months of the year when vendors were really looking for information about our market. So now we have year-round coverage to help support and grow our market as the demands continue to increase. Certainly the strategic planning process was a big part of this, of understanding what our expectations, the expectations of the commission, of citizens, of vendors, and all the stakeholders involved. Our future work includes looking at volunteer procedures, so how we get volunteers in the market more consistently to help with that burden on staff. And really how we are better communicating amongst our stakeholders. So what is the role of city staff, the market manager, other supports, volunteers, and the commission included, and clarifying the purpose of each of those groups along the way. The second phase of our strategic planning process was really looking at the policies and looking at a lack of clarity in our policies. Our policy manual, as it was, is the result of a lot of minor tweaks over 30-plus years. So you take a market that was a grassroots small organization and grow that over many, many years, move it to different locations, add so many vendors and opportunities, and we found that the policies no longer fit necessarily all of our needs. And so a big part of our strategic planning was really clarifying the who, what, where, when, how, why. How are people involved with our market? When can they get involved with our market? Under what category? What makes an agricultural vendor versus a produce vendor? What is local? You've heard a lot of these arguments, discussions, and quandaries along the way. So our goal here is to build consistent timelines and process and transparency. We've updated policies for this current season that we're in now, and now we're moving towards looking at the 2018 season and specifically looking at the fee structure and what impact that might have on the process. We're also looking at the jurying process, which is something that council has also charge the commission with. So how are we jurying our vendors? We currently have a jury process, but reviewing that to make sure that it upholds the values and the mission of the market, as well as keeps our vendor profile robust.
My question has to do with the businesses that are downtown, and I just curious about their feedback into the market, because I haven't heard from a lot, but several people have said that their business is impacted during that time of the market. So I just wondered how you all were addressing that.
It's been a while since the commission has had direct feedback from businesses. We get it occasionally, and the reviews are generally more positive than negative. There's a few businesses that have mentioned negative impact, but overwhelmingly it's been positive. Just today we do have Jenny Ford, who is now serving on our commission, and we talked with her about doing another survey with chamber and business members to get clearer feedback, because that is part of our strategic plan, is to engage the businesses downtown in more of that planning and operations process. And that's certainly something we take into consideration as we talk about layout. And today we talked about pass-throughs and where those are strategically located in front of businesses. And vendor of the week exists in the market. Do we have a downtown business of the week? And so those are kind of integrated throughout all of our work, especially integrated in the strategic plan. Does that answer your question?
That totally answers my question. Thank you.
Included in this is policies around everything, so vendor types, boundaries. This is really just trying to clarify why. We've noticed a lot of holes in our policies of where did this come from, and maybe it lived in this person's brain for a long time, but we want to make sure that anybody who reads our policies understands clearly how and when they're able to participate in the market, and maybe why they aren't able to participate in the market and what changes they could make to do so. I'll try not to take too much time. And then allocation and distribution of market costs. You've seen a lot of work on this. We just approved the fee structure for next year. That was a huge accomplishment for us to better understand the revenue sources that are coming into the market and make sure that it's equitable across all of our vendor types to try and make that more realistic to what our market is now versus when those original fees were set. It probably worked for the makeup of that market, but it no longer did now. So we've made big strides on that. Moving forward, we want to evaluate the effects of the change that we just made, because that's a pretty big change for our market, and then consider a multi-year plan so vendors can see what's coming in their business models and not be surprised by any fee increases or changes moving forward. And immediate and severe infrastructure needs. So this is really regarding the patron and vendor experience. We're doing a bit of a needs assessment on what that looks like. Everything from power and parking to benches and shade, making sure people have access to the market and that vendors have access to what they need to be effective in the market. So a lot to be done on that. We're focusing on policies and fees first. And again, more on layout. This was especially involving downtown businesses, accessibility, ease of use, and that experience in the market. You know, how long is too long, how wide is too wide, and really that time spent in the market and how desirable is spending time in the market. Are you in and out? Or you want to stay there all day? And how do people feel when they come? Are there impediments to getting into the market that we need to address? So that being said, here's a small plug also that we have the American Farmland Trust Farmers Market Celebration. You can vote for our farmers market at farmers.farmland.org to be the best. We usually score very well, but that's because we are amazing. And I will also plug that we currently have an empty seat on our commission for a community member. So all of you listening tonight, if this is something you would like to be involved in helping keep our market great, please apply for that seat. And I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Aaron, thank you for that great report. And I got to say, you know, getting some Saturdays where we have 8,000 people downtown is huge for us. On August the 19th, I spent that day, it was a Saturday, I spent that morning up on campus with incoming freshmen that were staying in our dorms and handed out T-shirts. And then and there was a number of different groups, 27 of them that went all over our town. And SYNC stands for Servicing Your New Community, servicing that you can possibly do. Anyway, we had 13 kids, freshmen, and I got a chance to lead them on the charge for the farmers market. And the leader of the pack, who I have known for a while, her name was Dammy, a really nice young lady. Anyway, so I always ask these kids questions because I like to find out where they're from and what they're thinking and what they're doing. And half of them are girls and half of them are boys, young men and women. And 7 of them were from Boise, which I love. Anytime we can get somebody from Boise here, so I always give them my spill about being a Vandal and how important it is to be here in Moscow for 4 years going to school. And even more important, when they go back to Boise to drive everybody down, they're nuts about coming to school at our fine university. But anyway, I took them on the march. I was giving them some history of our town. And on the way down, I asked them if they knew the numbers that they had. Before we got around the corner on 6th Street in Maine, I asked them if they had any idea how many people came to our farmers market on a Saturday. And the highest number I got was 500. And I said, you kids are dreamers. And we walked around the corners about 10:30, and I waded them right through, and you could barely get through. And so we got halfway through, and I said, does anybody want to take another guess? Because we probably had 500 right at that moment. And so it was kind of a fun thing to do, Aaron. But what are comments and questions for Aaron? Walter.
Thank you. Farmers market is an awesome thing for the city of Moscow. I had a couple of experiences on Saturday which recur when I go down there. One, I see a lot of people that I know from Pullman.
I know.
I see people that I knew 25 years ago when I lived in Lewiston. My wife visited with a mother of one of her 50-year-old daughter's classmates to learn what's your child doing now at the Moscow Farmers Market next to the water fountain, of all things. So it's a wonderful thing. I had a man in a Montana shirt was over here for a football game, and he was blown away. He says, this is the most awesome thing I've seen. So we're making, really big impact on people. We're bringing people into town. I welcome all those Cougars to Moscow. The one thing that I would really like to see would be more U of I paraphernalia in the market. I think the Cougars are outdoing us a little bit. So, not necessarily on game day, but, U of I shirts and hats like the mayor wears. And, let's, really dress it up a little bit, but it's a great event.
Yeah, see if we can get some Vandal pride in the market.
Good job.
Absolutely.
I will say, since we're adding some good anecdote to that, we spent one Saturday at the commission tent, and I was begging for constructive feedback. What do you want to see? What can we do? I'm here to serve you, and my name tag, and was so excited. And the most constructive feedback I got was best market in the world. I'm back as an alum. I graduated 13 years ago, and I love this market. It's my favorite market. A man came in from Genesee, and I walked him around to 4 booths to find all of the items that he needed, and he said he will be back every Saturday because he can't find these in his community. And it was, I think the most constructive feedback that I got was more educational events for children, which is something that we're constantly trying to find and getting grants for. So if that's the most constructive feedback we're getting, then I think we're doing a good job. And I want to say thank you for your thanks for me, but city staff has been amazing. And Daniel's not here, and Kathleen passing the baton, and Jen has been incredible in this strategic planning process. So they deserve so much recognition for that work, and I hope that they receive that too.
Our Saturday mornings are a social event in Moscow, Idaho, every single Saturday. That's a big deal. Yes, there's a lot of business that transpires, but there's a lot of good stuff that happens, just like what Walter mentioned. And when I come down, I always spend time talking about all kinds of stuff. But it's a fun thing. So you guys do a great job. Thank you. Other comments for Aaron?
I think you're going to have less trouble finding members for the commission now that the strategic planning process is finished.
we lost some good people along the way. I'm not going to lie.
You're going to spend a lot of time working on this.
We lost some good men and women along the way, but
people want to join a winning team, and once you've already got some victories under your belt, then
that's okay. We'll take it. Now that we've got a plan, we need more people to help us implement it. So,
thank you, Aaron.
Thank you all.